Active times are ahead as we finish February and head into March, and this video has the latest look at the near-term weather, plus the latest breakdown of the next big storm that is looking like almost a guarantee from severe weather to snow for some zones of the country heading into next week. All those details are ahead, so stick around for the next 10 minutes of information. I'm going to talk about the near-term weather pattern as we get through the next 3 to 5 days to start this video, then we'll talk about that big system on the way as we get towards especially around the middle point of next week. All of that is coming up in this video, but let's go ahead and start right here with that near-term pattern as we push out of our Thursday evening when I'm recording this and into our Friday, February 28th of 2025. About 95 to 98% of the country, from California to the Carolinas, looking to be warmer than average in terms of temperatures, with dry conditions prevailing for many spots. Where there will be an exception to that will be with a cold front bringing some very isolated rain showers or snow showers the further north you go as you get through parts of the Midwest into the Great Lakes. Most of this not bringing too big of impacts, but what could bring big impacts out of these zones, and then as the front associated with this low pressure moves east into Saturday, will be the gusty winds that will especially hit zones around and then eastward from the Mississippi River Valley. Again, this is a cold front, so even though we'll only be looking at a little bit of light snow being the main threat out of this, or maybe some moderate snow into places like New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, as this low pressure bringing the front moves into the northeast Saturday morning, we will see gusty winds from northwest to southeast continuing to push from the Mississippi River Valley into points eastward. A cool down will be behind that will last into the eastern third of the country as we finish the weekend. Most zones will be dry as we finish the weekend, but by the time we get towards March 2nd, out of Sunday and into our Monday, March 3rd, warmer than average conditions with a ridge where the jet stream gets pushed north. They are expected to begin returning into the central zones and eventually start moving further east. Part of that will come as we see a very isolated system that could bring some rain into some parts of the plains, maybe even some storms late Sunday into Monday. That will likely move east as we get into Monday. The exact location where this cutoff piece of energy moves is going to be unknown for now. But either way, it's not going to be a very significant rain or storm maker wherever it goes. This model shows it moving down towards places like Louisiana, Mississippi. The GFS model has it bringing rain towards Missouri and Illinois as we get through Monday. So it's going to be a little uncertain where that goes, but there's actually even more confidence in what's beyond that, with warmer than average air and ridging now shifting into zones further east. Cooler than average air, you can see some of that snowfall into the west. It looks like we're going to see that help in forming a low pressure system with strong southerly flow out ahead of it, strong northwest southerly flow back behind it. That big contrast in warmth and cool air will bring that big system next week, and that's what I'll be breaking down in more detail in just a couple of minutes. While we're on the topic of the near-term pattern, let's briefly go over some of those wind gusts set to move through with that cold front and low pressure system out of the central into the eastern U.S. as we get into the start of the upcoming weekend. Starting right here as we get into our Friday, February 28th into the afternoon hours, it is going to be a very breezy time, especially where you see those greens on screen, from the Dakotas and Nebraska through parts of Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, all the way down to Indiana and Ohio, whether the winds are going to be from the south, like out ahead of the system in the Ohio Valley, or wrapping back around into this system from the west and northwest, bringing that cool down. 30, 40, even up to 50 mile per hour wind gusts will be moving through a lot of this region late Friday. That will lead to some isolated power outages in addition to some of those tree limbs coming down, and of course those usual disruptions with travel and loose objects getting thrown around that we see with these types of gusty winds. As we get out of Friday into our Saturday, more gusty winds, but it's going to be more on the verge of widespread 20 to 30 mile per hour gusts, more of those just nuisance type wind gusts that affect outdoor plans. Those will be especially prominent closer to the mid-Atlantic and northeast coast of the U.S. into our Saturday. With that being said, the last part of the near-term weather pattern that I really want to overview is going to be some of those temperatures we're anticipating. With that cold front, of course, going to shake things up a little bit, but then we'll start to see some of that warmth expanding back further east by the time we finish the weekend. I can tell you, though, into our Friday afternoon, before we see the cold front move through some parts of the Midwest and Ohio Valley, all the way on up here into the North Central Plains, over into that region I just discussed, 50s, 60s, even in some of those orangish shades, getting closer to 70 degrees, and that will include Kansas, southern Nebraska, Missouri, Illinois. It is going to be a warm Friday afternoon in these zones. You can see that cold coming in from the north, though, already up into the Dakotas, Minnesota, with that northwest to southeast wind blowing in strong Friday, only hitting the 30s to 40s just north of states that will be in the 60s during this time frame. What about down into California, southern Nevada, Arizona, over here into New Mexico, Texas, You name it, all these shades of orange into parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, the southeast states of the U.S., including Florida, looking at a widespread swath of 70s down here, and a lot more of these zones closer to the U.S.-Mexico border as well as the Gulf Coast border, still staying in the 60s and many spots in the 70s as we get into our Saturday afternoon, where we are going to notice that little dip in the jet stream behind our cold front, though. It's going to sag pretty far south down here, at least to the mid-Mississippi Valley over to the Ohio Valley, where places like Missouri and Kentucky were in the 60s to even near 70 Friday, down to 45 to 50 for the peak high temperature Saturday. Points northbound from there, around and north of this line that I'm drawing, having a hard time getting above freezing with that northwest to southeast flow kicking up and keeping the temperatures much cooler into our Saturday. Temperatures will, of course, be even cooler, say, Friday night going into Saturday, and as we go Saturday night into Sunday mornings. Check weather.gov for those morning temperatures. But even right here, you can see Sunday afternoon remaining cool in the east with places like Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, only in the mid-30s. Meanwhile, if you go due west of there and back into the Central Plains, we're around 60 as that warmer than average air starts to return north even into those zones to finish the weekend. And by the time we get into the early part of next week with warmth building up even more, this right here is what's going to lead to that severe weather outbreak and bigger scale storm system. Cold air moving through the west, warm air in the central and eastern zones starting to build back up. That's your recipe for that larger system. Now that we've talked about the near-term weather pattern and even this little storm that could move somewhere out of the central towards the eastern U.S. around Monday, let's talk about this bad boy, the big storm that I've been talking about for the last couple of updates now, including this one and then the one before. Been hinting at it in community posts on my channel, looking like a very strong low pressure system is set to move into the central U.S. around late Monday night heading into Tuesday, March 4th of next week. And we're using this individual European model run here to get a general idea of how this system could look day by day from Tuesday through Thursday of next week. It's probably not going to look exactly like this when we get to this event, given that we're still 5 days out from even this point on screen as of when I'm recording this video, but it looks like around Tuesday morning, a strong flow of south to north winds, bringing gusty winds and rain showers and storms all the way from Texas and Louisiana up to the upper Mississippi Valley to start our Tuesday. Meanwhile, wrap around northwest to southeast wind flow on the tail end of our storm on the cold side, making this dynamic and also bringing that snow around into places like especially Montana, through the Mountain West, and into other parts of the Rockies in Utah, Wyoming, Colorado. You name it, some snow wrapping back around into the Mountain West through the day Tuesday if this guidance continues to hold. The exact development of this storm, the position of the low, those are going to be things that we have to keep an eye on between the European guidance and other guidance like the GFS and Canadian model as we get closer. Current indications would be that we see a very vast area of rain and storms expanding, especially up and down the Mississippi Valley, starting to stretch over into the Ohio Valley as we get through the very end part of the day on our Tuesday. The further back down to the south you go through this circled region, especially out of Missouri, far southern Illinois, around the Ohio Valley region, and then back into points south where I'm drawing these hashed marks, that's where you'd see that more elevated threat for severe weather, where we're going to have more instability possibly being pushed north into this storm out of Texas, out of Oklahoma, and then eventually expanding sometime through Tuesday evening into places like Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee. Very strong storms possible there, while we could be seeing snow going on and starting to push east through parts of Nebraska, Kansas, and eventually over into the Midwest states. As we get out of Tuesday night into our Wednesday, this is where we start to lose confidence in the exact track of this storm, especially. There's pretty high confidence that this is going to be a mainly rain and wind event, not necessarily a severe weather event for most zones on up into the Ohio Valley and Northeast. Could we see a stronger storm on the wraparound front that we get into places like Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio possibly through our Wednesday afternoon? That's possible. Best chance for severe weather will be whenever this line moves through Kentucky, Tennessee, out of places like Mississippi, Alabama from Wednesday morning and then through Wednesday afternoon, trying to move on over here towards the East Coast. This European model guidance is definitely the slowest solution, but even it brings a lot of those heavier storms through the Carolinas and Appalachians by Wednesday evening, bringing them towards the East Coast around the middle of the night, Wednesday night heading into Thursday. Timing of that could certainly change. Timing for some of this wraparound snow possible into the Midwest, that's also possible to change, but it looks like Iowa, Wisconsin, and even places in Missouri that could start out with the system getting storms, you could transition to snow by the end. Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, gusty winds and possible snow to finish this out sometime Wednesday night into Thursday. Again, a very dynamic system looking to be on the way, and that's the first overview look of it, as it looks like it would be pulling out of here except for maybe the lingering gusty winds through the end of the day on our Thursday. So with that being said, here is a quick conclusion on what I know now for the latest information with that winter storm coming, especially from March 3rd through 6th. Origin zone, as always with these bigger scale systems, is likely going to be out west, coming out of the Sierras of California and then eventually through the Mountain West and Rockies from Monday through Tuesday. That's going to be the main impact time frame there. We'll be cooler than average temperature-wise in those zones first, and then we'll start to see the snow and below average temperatures moving out somewhere into the central and north central plains. Is everybody in the bright blue going to see heavy snow? Definitely not, but we could see a moderate to heavy band somewhere, especially where I have those blue shades coming out of Nebraska into Iowa, Wisconsin. That's where guidance is being most consistent and showing that being possible. It could certainly shift, though, and we could even see some snow into some of those areas that have the greens in the Midwest and Ohio Valley. But that could be after we see rain, gusty wind, and storms to begin this. By the time we get sometime out of Wednesday night to Thursday, that could be when those zones possibly go over to snow if we get the timing to line up right. Further down to the south, it's all about the severe storms. This could be a significant severe weather event, and I'll touch more on this in a future update that focuses only on this system. But out of Texas, out of Oklahoma, starting through Tuesday, then pushing through Tuesday night through parts of the Mid-South, over into Wednesday, wherever the storms go, maybe even up as far north as the Ohio Valley, but especially into the southeast and mid-Atlantic. This looks like a dynamic system. Everybody's going to feel some sort of impact in the west, in the central, and the eastern U.S., whether it's with wind and cold, wind and warmth and rain, whether it's with severe thunderstorms. I'll keep you updated on everything coming with this system in the future. Make sure hitting that subscribe button right down below so you never miss a passionate weather update right here at One Nation Weather.